All right, so we've had some time to think about this. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks it will be opened. Or what man is there among you, when his son asks for a loaf, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, he will not give him a snake, will he? If you then, being evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give what is good to those who ask him? In everything, therefore, treat people the same way you want them to treat you. For this is the law and the prophets. So we've had some time to think about this. What does that mean? Ask, seek, and knock. What do we ask for? What do we seek? What do we knock on? What do we receive? What do we find? And what will be opened? Our eyes get opened? Okay, explain that.
Well, you see things in a different perspective.
How?
Well, I mean, if you wanted to stay angry and angry at the world, you're not going to see what Christ sees.
Okay. So we...
You're not going to see another man basically doing you wrong as a brother of Christ, or, like what would Jesus do, right? WWJD, right? When you knock, I guess you're asking a question.
Okay.
Certainly.
Okay.
Whatever the part is.
Okay.
Let's do that part. Okay? That would be part of our seek. And then when you're knocking at the door, you want answers.
Okay. So we ask for the answers, we seek the answers, we knock on the door, and the answers will be opened for us. Okay. That's pretty good. Okay, so we ask for forgiveness, we seek the Lord, and we knock on the door to heaven. And it will be open to us. Okay, so if I ask God to forgive me, if I seek after him, and I knock on the door to heaven, I will get in. Okay? Okay? I can go with that. Okay. Okay. Anybody have anything different? Once again, I'm not going to, tell you you're wrong, like I did to Debbie last week, but I never told you you were wrong. I just pushed back. So, one of the things that's been interesting for me is to see the progressions. Like when you start and say, I'm going to go in Matthew 5, and I go verse by verse through Matthew 5, through Matthew 6, through Matthew 7, instead of just taking ask, seek, and knock out of context and see, if you ask God for it, he'll give it to you. If you seek after it, you'll find it. If you knock on it, it'll be open for you. Right? And you're like, yeah, but where is this coming from? What are you talking about to begin with? Right? And so this is one of the reasons why it's so important to keep scriptures inside of the grammatical context. This last week we talked a little bit about the historical. We give you the historical context of the church at Laodicea. Now we're looking at the importance of keeping things in the grammatical context, where they are in comparison with everything else that is being written. Because we see these progressions. Jesus isn't just talking in sound bites, right? He's teaching something that's leading to something. So when we are in Matthew 6 and he's saying, look, stop worrying. Stop striving after the things of the world. You don't need to worry about where your food's going to come from. You don't need to worry about where your clothes are going to come from. The birds of the field, God provides them, and you're more valuable to God than the birds. Why wouldn't he provide for you? The lilies of the field are dressed in these beautiful clothing that God has provided to them. You are far more valuable to God than the lilies in the field. Why wouldn't God provide you your clothing? Therefore, seek after his kingdom and seek his goodness. Stop worrying, right? So what is Jesus in a sense saying? Stop trying to control everything. Because when I'm worried, I begin to try to control it. Right? So the more I worry, the more I try to control. And Jesus is saying, I don't want you to be in control. Human beings have been in control since the creation of the world, and look at the condition of the world. This is what happens when human beings are in control. Not only do you have world wars, you have civil wars, you have revolutionary wars, you have infightings, you have guerrilla warfare, you have violence, you have chaos, you have all sorts of diseases, you have suicide, you have billions and billions and billions of dollars being spent on antidepressants and therapy because you guys are in control. Let me be in control for a little bit. All I need you to do is seek after my kingdom, seek after my goodness. And then he starts talking about judgment when we get into Matthew 7. He says, I don't need you to judge people. Let me do that. You can't judge the speck that is in your brother's eye. You got a log in your eye. What is he saying? Stop trying to control the people around you. I will take care of them. I don't need you to try to control them. I don't need you to try to manipulate them. I don't need that. All I need from you is I just need you to love them. Be there for them. Comfort them. I will take care of them. Stop worrying about yourself. You need to learn how to entrust yourself to God. Stop worrying about the people around you. Learn how to entrust the people around you to God. And then he says, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open. What is the progression that he's making here? If I clear out all of the junk in my life, if I'm no longer worried about how I'm going to get paid on Friday, if I'm no longer worried about how I'm going to pay the electric bill, if I'm no longer worried about if my truck's going to start in the morning, if I'm no longer worried about is Jim going to heaven when he dies, if I'm no longer worried about the way my neighbor is living or who they're loving or what they're drinking, and if I get rid of all that stuff and I just trust God to take care of all that stuff, now all I have left to do and all I have left to think about is him.
Amen.
If I ask for him to show up in my life, does he show up? If I seek after God, will I find him? If I knock on heaven's door, will he let me in? So, what Jesus is doing here is Jesus is trying to bring us into the core of our purpose. And the Christian journey is not a journey outwards. The Christian journey is a journey inward. I have to go inside of me. Okay? So I begin to ask, Jesus, are you in me? And he responds, I am. So then if I want to know more about Jesus, what do? I seek him in me. I begin to move inside of myself, seeking him. And last week, out of the old Revelation, once again, June 5th, Tuesday, 7 p.m., Revelation Bible study. Be a lot of fun. I'm actually really happy that Lori and Bonnie are making me do this, because originally I didn't want to do it. They twisted my arm and beat me up, and so finally I said, okay, I'll do it. And now I'm thankful, because this is amazing. But Jesus says here in Revelation 3:20, he says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in to him and will dine with him and he with me." So in Revelation, Jesus is doing the knocking. Jesus is knocking at our door, right? And so how do we begin to understand this? Because now Jesus is telling me to knock. So whose door am I knocking on? Jesus is knocking on my door. Whose door am I knocking on? And I would say, I'm knocking on my door. Because what does Jesus want? Jesus wants to come in me and dine with me, but he still needs me to show up to the meal. So I need to be willing to move inside of me, inside of my pain, inside of my brokenness, inside of my shame, inside of my guilt, and to meet Jesus in the midst of all of that, not so he will judge me and condemn me, so he'll come in and say, that has nothing to do with me. None of your shame has anything to do with me. None of your guilt has anything. All that stuff is just getting in the way of you and I sitting down and having a meal together. I just served you this beautiful plate of food, and your shame is just a hair, the waiter's hair that fell right on top of your steak, and you're just like, ugh. Can I get a new one? There's a hair on it. Right? So, this concept of Jesus trying to get us to clear out our mind. So I'm no longer worried about me. I'm no longer worried about you. All my time is devoted to me. Right? That sounds really selfish. It sounds really weird. But my movement into me is so I can begin to fall in love with me. I gotta take this off. I'm getting hot. Because Paul says that the law is summed up in one word in the statement, love your neighbor as yourself. You guys have heard this time and time again. The word is yourself. I cannot love you if I don't love me. St. Teresa of Avila, she's one of the great saints and one of the great mystics of the church. She was like, I think 15th century, 1600s, I believe in Spain. Some of you might be familiar with St. Teresa of Avila Church over there on 611. They do a big fish fry every year for Lent in Sheffield. She talks about the interior castle and about how the journey of the Christian journey is moving into the interior so God can do the work inside of us. And she talks about these 7 dwelling places. So she finds that there's 7 stages of our development inside. In each one we knock, and God allows us to go into the next one. But if we can't knock if we're not seeking, we can't seek if we don't ask. Are you there? Because I'm not going to go searching after somebody who if I don't know they're there or not. And so where is the Spirit? The Spirit is in me. And so I begin to love myself. I begin to see me in the exact image of which God sees me. Because God created me in His image. One day God dreamed me up in all my glory. He saw me exactly the way He wanted to see me. And He created all of that. He put all my personality. He put my height. He put my weight. He put my thinning hair. He put all of that inside of this DNA. And He put that DNA in a cell in my dad's body. And then that cell in my dad's body fertilized an egg in my mom's body. And it began to grow. And then as I was birthed out into the world, did God change His mind about that image? Did God ever say, I no longer love that image? Did God ever stop seeing me in the exact image of which He created me? And the answer is no. The problem is the world told me I'm not that image. The world told me that I should be ashamed of my receding hairline and I should get implants, or I should go on Rogaine. The world told me that I needed to go on a diet. The world told me that I wasn't good enough exactly the way that I am. So there's this guy, and one day, for whatever reason, he just begins to think that he's a piece of seed. He's seed, and he's terrified. And so he begins to go to therapy, and he spends years and tons of money in therapy. And finally, after 3 years of therapy, his therapist is finally able to convince him that he's a human being. He's not seed. And so he's relieved. A few weeks later, he's pounding on his therapist's door, and the therapist can tell he hasn't eaten in days, and he hasn't slept in days. And he says, "What's wrong?" He goes, "I got new neighbors, and they have chickens." And the therapist says, "Yeah, but you know you're not seed." And he said, "Yeah, but do the chickens know? Do the chickens know?" So what are the chickens? The chicken's the world that's telling me I'm seed. The chickens are the world that doesn't know that I'm not there for them to consume. I'm God's. He's the one that decides I'm good enough. Not Hollywood. Not the modeling industry. He said that I'm good. And He says, I love you exactly the way you are. And then, when I can begin to continue that journey inward, I'm seeking God inside of me. I'm asking Him if He's in me. I'm knocking on those doors so I can continue to move deeper and deeper and deeper down into my own soul. I begin to fall in love with me, not because I'm great, but because I'm God's. And I begin to see me exactly the way God sees me. And then the manifestation of that is that it doesn't stay inside, that then it begins to come out, because when I can begin to see me exactly the way that God sees me, then I have no choice but to see you exactly the way God sees you, because why am I more important than you? I'm not any more special than you are. If God loves me this way, then He loves you the exact same way. And if God sees you without spot or wrinkle or blemish, then I need to see you the same way. And the more I begin to love me, the more I begin to love you. And now I don't have to go out and knocking on doors, witnessing and evangelizing. People just see me and say, that's the person I want to be like. Because no matter where this person is, they don't have a negative word to say about anybody. They have nothing negative to say about anything. All they want to do is love people. All they want to do is help people, because they have no choice, because they're so full of the love that God has for them, and they have for God, and they have for themselves, that it begins to spill out into every single person they come in contact with. Now I don't need to go knock on the door and say, hey, you should come to Grace Community Church. Now I don't need to knock on the door and say, have you found Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior? People are going to see me and they're going to be like, man, that person is different. What is inside of you that I want? And I can say, the only thing that's changed in me is I've changed the way I see. I no longer see me as a product of the world anymore. I see me as a creation of God. And I see me as a being who is loved by God. Because what kind of creator would abandon and reject his creation simply because they went through the natural process of birth that He created Himself? The moment you're born into the world, you're a sinner, and you've been separated from God, and you're no longer included in the gospel. Until one day, later on in life, you say the magic words, you say the magic prayer, and now you go to heaven when you die. Because I don't know. I could probably have Jim explain it. I'm pretty sure that we've had enough conversations that when he's talking about knocking on that door to heaven, that's not in the future. That's now. The door to heaven can be open to us now. Jesus prays for it when he says, Our Father, Lord in heaven, hallowed be your name. Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. Heaven isn't a destination that we're to go to. Heaven is a destination that we're to be bringing here. That's the plan. For this to be the new heaven and the new earth. It's all in Revelation. June 5th, 7 p.m.
Is that when it's going to happen?
Yes. The new heavens and new earths will be here. I've become the next predictor of the end of the world, or the beginning of the new one. There you go. I can sell millions and millions of books. Then I can sell millions of books writing the follow-up. Oh, I was wrong, but I redid my math. Now the world's going to end on this date. So I spent a lot of time, as many of you know, trying to figure out this Christian journey and what it's all about. And one of the things I know for sure, it's not about believing right doctrine. It's not about sitting in a chair or a pew on Sunday. It's not about making sure you pray before every meal. It's about moving inward. It's about moving. The process of transformation, salvation, sanctification, redemption, whatever you want to call it, is not a one-stop shop. I said it, I got my ticket, I'm good. Your awakening, the moment that you woke up one day and said, Jesus, are you real? And he said, I am. And you said, Jesus, are you in me? And he said, I am. And once again, it might not have been exactly that way, but all of us have gone through some process where we recognize that something is different. That didn't end the journey. That started the journey. The Christian journey is about a progressive movement inward, right? This is where Jesus talks about the parable of the seed. Right? The parable of the seed, it gets planted, it grows a stalk, and then it grows the head, and then it becomes mature grain. We don't just say the magic word, say the magic prayer, and we're the mature grain. Right? And this is one of the things that I love that Richard Rohr talks about is we're not just born again. We're born again and again and again and again. We're constantly being transformed into the image of God. Not because God doesn't see us or because we're not in that image, because I don't see myself in that image. I wish I could just flip the switch and love every single person the same way I love myself. Doesn't happen. Because no matter how arrogant I want to be, I still don't love myself fully. And the reason why I know that is because I still don't love other people fully. I'm still not seeing myself in the exact same way in which God sees me. Because it's a process of progressive transformation. The problem is that if we're not asking, if we're not seeking, and we're not knocking, we're not progressing. We're just hoping that this free ticket to heaven thing is true. We're just hoping that I'm not gonna, that this eternal torment fire thing I was taught as a kid, that I don't have to go there anymore. I got my ticket out, and I'm good. I sit in the chair on Sunday and I sleep through the guy's sermons and I, listen to some music and then I go home. Jesus is calling us into a process. And the problem is that it's a very intimate process. When Jesus says, I'm knocking at the door. If you open it, I'm going to come in and dine with you. Dining is a very intimate thing in that setting because you're sitting across the table from somebody. You're feeding yourself life. You're looking into each other's eyes. You're having conversation, right? And this is one of the things where, like, if you invite me over for dinner, I don't want to play games after dinner. I have no interest in playing games because all the games is just distract us from doing anything real. I want to have a conversation. I want to talk to you. I want to know you. I want to have this intimate time together that we just had over this meal because that's what Jesus is wanting to do with me. Jesus doesn't want to come inside of me and play apples to apples. Jesus wants to come inside of me, and he wants to be able to know me. And he wants me to learn to know him. He wants to have this intimate time together. This is the process of the Christian journey. And this is why I say the slogan for our church now today is that I want us to be a center for progressive Christian spirituality. Because our spirituality, needs to be Christian. It needs to be rooted and grounded in Jesus Christ. But it needs to be moving. People say, I hate progressives. You don't like moving forward? You just want to stay stuck? You don't want to move? You don't want to, progress? Progress is good. Daughters and kids, they go to school, they get progress reports to see how well they've learned and how well they've moved and how much they know more compared to at the beginning of the year. Progress is good. We want to be progressive in our spirituality. Not necessarily our politics, but that's up to you to decide. Right? Doesn't mean the same thing. When Jesus is talking about asking and seeking and knocking, he's giving us a progressive journey. Ask. Jesus, are you in me? I am. We seek after him, and we'll find him. We knock on his door. We knock on our door, and it's going to be open to us. The Christian journey is about moving inward, so that way eventually we can be moved outward. And this is the mistake we made several years ago when we said we're going to be a missional church. We're just going to go out, and we're going to go out, and we're going to go out. But there's nothing. It was just we're going to go out and do things to say we're doing things. We want to move in, go in, so we can get moved out. Amen?